Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 43 in the Slither project. This is a 1969 Cobra Jet Mustang Mach 1 that I started with a car that was rusted to pieces, and I basically built a new car from parts of the original car and parts from dynacorn. So behind me you'll see the car is on a rotisserie, and in the last video I sprayed the engine bay with a satin finish on it to complete that process. What I want to do now, there's several things that I need to do. One of those is I need to strip off the roof. I have the car on the rotisserie, and with it on the rotisserie I'm able to access the roof panel, so I will be using the SCT and stripping off that material. I just don't want to have anything there before I put epoxy on it. I will strip off whatever I can while it's in this position, and then move on from there to the other process, which is I need to take apart the suspension components for the front, salvage out the spindles and calipers, and get those cleaned up and get them, back in paint, and then assemble everything with new upper and lower control arms and get everything bolted in, get the steering bolted in, and be able to put this on the ground. I'm hoping I can get that done this week. If I can't, it'll be next week for sure. So I'm going to keep working and see what I can get done this week. Alright, so I've made some good progress stripping down the roof, of course using the SCT, and I've tried some different drums on that. I know that the rough one doesn't quite do as good a job as I wanted it to. There is still some texturing here and there, and I also stripped off the deck filler panel and the perimeter of the back window opening. I will do more on that later, and also I went over it with the DA some, but I will do more on that later. I just wanted to get the bulk of it off at this point. And now I'm going to try to start taking apart this suspension. This is going to be probably a bit of a challenge because I want to save the spindle, right, and the caliper, and I don't need the control arms. And based on the condition of this, the threads, this could be pretty tough to get apart. So I think what I'll do for now is try to get it apart up on this table. I know that a lot of times you have to hit stuff pretty hard to break it loose, and this is a bit cumbersome, simply because it's, hey, sorry about that. It's a bit cumbersome simply because everything articulates, right? I'll give him credit, that cotter pin is hanging on pretty. I don't like to use it this like this, but whew. Surprisingly, that cotter pin is in decent condition. Look at that. Look at that. Unbelievable. I did not expect that at all. No way. No way. I just felt a lot easier. What's going on there? Well, and I don't. This one's smaller. Might have more grip on it. Whew. Oh, that's what it took. Look at that. Woo. Okay. That did it. That did it. Whew. Oh my God. Man. That thing was on there. Whew. I'll be disassembling the rest of this, which will mean pulling off the caliper, the bracket, so I can clean the spindles up, and then all this is going to be basically put back on because I don't have any new ones, and that's going to be the kind of the plan going forward, I guess. So I'm going to take this apart. There is some small bolts here. Hopefully these break loose. So these little bolts, that still has a Loctite on there. That's pretty cool. Little bolts that hold this kind of shield. 1/16. And those are combination thing. They have washers on them. You see the condition of that stuff. Take the shield off. Well, I can't get the shield off because the brake hose is still on. There's still brake fluid in there. Take that shield off. Okay, let's see. Well, I don't know. That's the only thing holding that on. Should be those two bolts. Really, really surprised. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these pistons are toast, fried. Well, there it is, blasted. Cleaned up really nice. And I know there's talk of using gun bluing and applying some other chemicals on top of that. I'm not going to do that. I will paint this again with a satin black, and that's the way it's going to be. I don't have the time, and I don't see necessarily the value in doing all that other stuff. If the car was a concourse car, yeah, I could see it, but not in this case. Alright, I have the front assemblies apart. I'm going to clean up the spindles. I'm not going to take the caliper brackets off, and I may look at getting new parts to put all this back together, so that may delay it a little bit. These parts over here, again, sway bar, steering stuff, none of that's going to be used except for the coil spring towers. And then I rolled the housing in here, and I'm going to have to cut off what's left of the spring shackle mounts, and I know that there's a bolt in that one up there. So I'm going to get that. I'm not going to clean that up at all, and that'll go underneath the car as is. So I've got the car back here on the, or close to the lift again, so I'll be lifting it up and of course getting the rotisserie out of the way. Okay, I think the time has come to get this off of the rotisserie. I've done all I can up on top for now, and I have taken off all the paper that I had covering up the ends here when I was doing the primer. I've also put some pieces of cardboard on top of these plates so that they don't mar up or scratch the bottom of the car. So at this point, I'm going to try to get this off and then continue with the suspension as far as I can get. We'll see how it all goes. Now, if I can remember how all this comes apart. So now that I have the car off of the rotisserie and lowered down on the lift, I have all of these pieces here. And of course, this is the lower control arm. This is a Scott Drake piece sold through Kentucky Mustang. I have the spring perch or spring saddle, also sold through Kentucky Mustang, and that I believe is ACP. And then I have the upper control arm, also a Scott Drake piece. I have an XLG gas shock KYB. I have the painted spindle, the painted coil spring, and also the rubber piece that goes on the flat end of the spring, which will go up against the inside of the shock tower. So I have to get that out, put that in place. So I'm going to try to assemble all this and see how far I can get today. I should also point out that I do have a master chassis kit, and I also have the rear spring shackles. And in this kit, there's a lot of stuff. So obviously a whole list of things, everything from spring shackle mounts in the front, or not spring shackle, but the mount bolts for the front of the leaf springs, shock braces or shock brackets. Here's some trans cross member, engine body brackets, V8 assembly manual reference needed. Okay, just a whole bunch of pieces and parts in here. What I'm trying to find is the hardware that will mount this perch onto the control arm. I do have some of my own nuts and washers, but I'm going to make sure that I have what should be on here. So we shall see. check torque on those later. Make sure you got this offset the same way. You have to adjust that out. Nice, nice. I'm sure you could probably put it on either way if you tried hard enough. There we go. I have no reason to go anywhere. I'm not checking the torque on these. They're tight. There. I like that better. Note to self. Okay, now that is going to turn together. I like that. I like that better. Mo better. Okay. Okay. Now, if I can get this onto the spring. Okay. Now, all we have to do is make that magically go in there. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to get a clamp out and start compressing the spring and see what happens. Okay. I tried using these, and you know what? I was not happy. I was scared to death trying to compress this spring. This is a big block spring. Unfortunately, I've scarred it up some, and I'll have to touch it up later. But I have borrowed this kit from a buddy of mine, and this is much better. I just see I don't have that lined up right. So this compresses straight down the middle and keeps all the pressure square, I guess. I say square. Keeps it in a center rather than having separate pieces pulling side to side. And I've used this before. I knew he had it. I forgot that he had it. There we go. And he had suggested trying to use it a little differently than what I have before. Now hopefully I get this right on the first run and I can, you know, get it in. The problem is, of course, getting all this lined up and trying to get the spring in place, trying to get the control arm to do its thing the right way. And he had suggested that maybe put the spring up against the inside of the shock tower and compress it in place and then bolt the control arm in. And I don't think I want to do that. I don't know that that would actually do the right thing. This is so much better than this sketchy stuff from Harbor Freight. Now granted, this is for probably lighter duty things. And this set up, like I'm turning this pretty easily because it's got a roller bearing set up inside of here. So on the mating surface. So I'm able to compress this almost just with ease. To get it up in there. That's close. That's close. I can barely get my finger in between there. So, well, now, I think what I'm going to have to do is put a little tension on that with the jack. The scary part is, you know, when you release this, I mean, what's to keep it from coming out? Other than your luck of the floor jack here. So, I'm going to try to take that loose. It's a big block spring. It's a lot stronger. I feel like I'm doing a high-risk maneuver here. I wish it didn't feel that way. Okay, I'll let this down a little bit because that's taking the weight off of the lift. That's how strong that spring is, that it's lifting the car with the jack. All right, now what I want to do, at least temporary, is get the shock absorber in here. Take a little bit of this pressure off. Okay, just a little. Get the bearing out. This has to come apart. There's a pin in here. Take this pin out, and then this upper section all pulls out. And the plates come out. And now, you hope, I'm just going to keep that underneath there for the moment. You hope there's enough here to keep this from blasting out. Quite the design. All right, I'm going to touch this spring up a little bit, and then I'm going to set the shock down inside of there. Okay, spring is sitting in place. I do have the jack underneath right now, keeping some tension on the bottom control arm. What I want to do, just for safety, is set the shock in there. And the idea is it'll stop the spring from wanting to come out if it, tries to. So I'm going to put on all the pieces that create the little rubber pieces and the washer and stuff like that go on the shock. And this is just, again, temporary. I don't want to bolt this in permanent yet because I have to clean up the actual mount pieces. I have not blasted these yet, so I want to blast these, get them painted, and then I can put this in place. Hopefully. I can get it in there. So there's one started. So, now what I want to do is let the tension off of the jack and see what happens. Ah, it stayed. Yay! Yeah, there's a little bit of pressure, just a small amount. But see, once I get the spin or the rotors on, and later on, of course, tires and whatnot, the weight of the car is going to help keep all this together. But just from a safety standpoint, I did not want this to have easy access to get out. So that's where we're at. Okay, so I didn't get as far as I wanted. I do have the upper and lower control arm on both sides, spindle, coil spring, and the shock is just sitting in there. There's some other things that I need to put on, obviously, and that is the lower control arm, strut rod, braces. This is from SPC Performance, and this is the bushing kit that came with those, and the sway bar, and that will come on probably the next video. I still need to decide whether I'm going to order the new rotors and dust shield and everything else at this time, or if I will just bolt on the rusty ones and just put it back together to get it on the ground. I don't feel like I can fully assemble everything at this point because I need to clean up the shock tower brackets, get those ready to go, and also the export brace goes in between everything, and if I put that on now, then I'm going to be struggling with painting around it, and I really don't want to do that. So things are coming, more to do obviously, but I am so happy to have it off of the rotisserie and sitting on the lift. Okay, that'll be the end of this video. Now, I did hope to get further along in the process, but I started fighting with those coil springs, and those things are scary. Just so much potential energy there, and if something were to come apart, I really don't want to be on the receiving end of any of that. So I did go and get the better tool from a buddy of mine, and that made a world of difference. So if you're ever doing one of these, try to avoid the Harbor Freight stuff. It's really scary. Now, of course, I have to put the rest of the suspension on, get the rear end underneath the car, and from there, get it on the ground, get the fenders on, the doors on, and also mock up the hood, check the hinges, make sure everything's going to work with the hood and all that, and obviously modify the hood for the Cobra Jet function. So, still a lot more to do, but I look forward to sharing some of that with you very soon. If you're interested in seeing longer versions of my videos with more details, check out my Patreon page. Join for as little as $5 a month, and you get to see videos like this with more detail and no commercials, no ads, none of that stuff. So that'll be it for this video, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.